happy, and I couldn't imagine my life without it.
So tell me about your first fight.
My first fight was pretty embarrassing. I ended up fighting someone who was much older and had about 20 plus fights. And I'd only been boxing 3 months, and my coach at the time didn't bother showing up to the actual competition. So I got stopped in about 30 seconds. It was pretty embarrassing, but even then, that didn't stop me, nor did it even put a hold up on where I thought I would be in boxing, because the next day I was back in the gym training.
Why was that though? What is it about you? Because I feel if that had happened to me, I would just never box again.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's it could be both a character flaw and one of my greatest strengths. I'm not someone that quits very easily. When I have my mind fixated on something, I don't care how long it takes, eventually I will accomplish it.
And that grit served Pat well. Slowly his boxing improved and he went from winning fights to becoming the 5-time women's amateur boxing champion. At the time, women's boxing wasn't included at the Olympic Games. But that changed when it was announced that they would be able to compete at the 2012 Games in London. As one of the best female boxers in the country, it was the chance of a lifetime for Pat.
I was thrilled. We knew that'd be history defining, and it would also allow me to fight at the highest levels of boxing. That's all I focused on, relationships, everything like that. It fell away. I was dealing with an injury, a shoulder injury, that actually sidelined me from 2 out of 3 of the qualifying tournaments. So my focus had to be singular about getting to the trials.
With it being your whole focus like that, tell me about the moment you realized that you wouldn't be going to the Olympics.
The moment I realized I'm going to go to the Olympics was after the shoulder injury that had been bothering me reared again, and my shoulder was kind of out of place from the first bout, and my coach medically disqualified me and, saved the rest of my career. It was really the lowest I've been. For people who aren't involved in sports, it sounds odd that a dream can mean as much as losing someone very close to you. I didn't know what to do with myself. I really did not know what to do when boxing wasn't there. And I was in a very, very down place. I hit rock bottom.
And at rock bottom, Pat started to drink heavily. With no boxing to distract him, those feelings about his body that he'd felt as a teenager came back, and they were impossible to ignore.
I definitely felt more uncomfortable. I started feeling disconnected from my body like I had through puberty. I felt myself disassociating and kind of watching myself go through the motions.
Was there a specific light bulb moment for you?
I think, the light bulb moment started coming for me when I was asked to join a social justice cohort, and that brought me into a lot more conversations with trans folks. I realized, this is something a lot of people experience.
And when you had that realization that you might be trans, did you feel comforted by that, comforted by the thought that there were other people out there, or did you struggle with that realization?
I think there was a bit of a gradual acceptance of it. At first, I came out as gender nonconforming and gender queer, something kind of in between both a man and woman. But the longer I started really realizing that there was an option for me, I realized trans man. So it was a gradual process of me really examining which labels felt right for me.
There was obviously a worry that must have been playing on your mind, that at that point you weren't sure if you would also compete as a trans boxer.
Yeah, that was my main concern. Would I be able to continue boxing? Because I wasn't done with the sport. I didn't want to just hang it up that way. So there was definitely some hesitation. My roommate at the time, he played women's basketball but came out as a trans man. He helped me realize there was a possibility for me to continue competing if I chose to live my life as a man.
You started on hormones initially. You've been imagining yourself in a different body for so long. How did it feel when you did look in the mirror and you started to see that different body?
I started, quote unquote, passing very early. I just remember thinking this is just the start, and being really excited about what that possibility would be like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
And when you say passing, do you mean passing as a man?
Yes, like unless I was on the phone, we're always saying he, his, him, calling me sir. There weren't really any questions of if I was a man or not.
From hormones, Pat went on to have a double mastectomy, giving him a more masculine chest. It was when he got back to training that he was featured in a TV news piece. It was about his transition and hopes that he'd be able to compete as a transgender man. After it